So I spent, the best part of about 5 years researching the difference between ordinary groups of people, so people that just sort of achieve ordinary stuff, and then extraordinary ones. I wanted to know, was there a difference between individuals and groups of people in organizations that achieve extraordinary stuff and that achieve ordinary stuff? And because I don't have many friends, we did a lot of research into that, and I wrote a paper about it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, "Gosh, Jez, what are you doing to 5 years worth of the research into the difference between ordinary organizations and extraordinary ones? Do you write an internationally best-selling book or something?" and yes, you do. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. But more importantly, I want to talk about something that I think is a little more interesting, and that's why it is that we fear change and why it is that we don't necessarily do the things that we can do. And that's because fundamentally, in order to do those, we need to ask more questions. And one of the things that really irritates me as a psychologist is that we don't ask enough questions. Now, of course, asking the question starts with the right question. And lots of people say to me, "Well, what's the right question? What question should we ask?" And at any given time, the first question we start with is, what is the right question to ask right now? Because the right questions do all the heavy lifting. And every day, all of today, probably not every day, but all of today, you have been asking yourself similar questions. You won't necessarily be aware of it right now. But we have to understand that very often we are the greatest barrier for change. We need to get out of our own way, let alone the way of our colleagues as well. The language that we use, like "I can't." If you tell a child that they can't do something, they give up learning, they give up trying. "I can't do something" is equally debilitating to tell an adult that they can't do something as well. Think about, when you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm fat. I'm so overweight, I'm so fat." Well, then you sort of find comfort foods, don't you, to reconcile that lack of confidence. And those comfort foods tend to be high in fat and carbohydrates, and then gradually you put on a bit of weight. Same way when people say, "I'm stupid. Oh, I'm thick, me, I'm really stupid." You give up learning, you give up trying. So therefore, other people keep learning, and you become academically a little less intelligent than them. The language we use limits us and our behavior and the way that we think, feel, and behave. But it also limits our potential. I want you to challenge everything Alex says with 2 questions, right? I want you to challenge everything that comes from head office. I want you to challenge everything that you come up with as a brand. Everything you come up with as a team. Everything you come up with as an individual. I want you to challenge with 2 questions. And I want you to encourage all of the people in your team, that those of you in your charge, ask the same questions. "What are the 2 questions, Jez?" I hear you scream with excitement. Or not. The first question is, why? Why do we do it this way? Now, you can't just go through life saying, "Why do we do it this way?" Right? Otherwise, you become a slinky in life. Slinkies? The spring slinky? Yeah? Not really good for anything, but a whole lot of fun if you push them down the stairs. And we all know a slinky in life, don't we? Might be married to one, I don't know. But, what you don't want to be is the one that other people want to be physically violent towards, right? So you can't just say, "Why do we do it this way?" It must always be followed up with, "How do we make it better?" 2 really simple questions. The questions that do the heavy lifting are always the simple ones. If we ask more questions, we own the solution. But how we respond to those questions is really critical. Response is driven by many things, including environment. All right. One of the things that I often caution people, and it's tragic for today as well, with this phrase: if it looks the same, it feels the same. You have the biggest challenge now as we head towards the end of this conference, because you've had an amazing time today, right? You've had some really interesting stuff that's happened. You've had amazing experiences. You've had great networking and a wonderful opportunity to connect after, too long. But all of this excitement and lights and production value, a little bit of glamour, laugh, patronizing, that's not going to be there when you get back. Your photocopy is still going to be broken. Your manager's still an arse, right? All of that life outside of Silverstone still exists. So our biggest challenge is, if it looks the same, it feels the same. And I know what you're thinking. You're sat there thinking, "Well, Jez, what do you do with 4 years worth of research into the difference between ordinary and extraordinary? Do you write an internationally best-selling book or something?" Well, yes, you do. And over the next sort of 6 hours, I want to talk to you about some of those things First of all, we need to do a tiny bit of science, because often people say to me, is human psychology particularly complex? Is it particularly difficult? How does that relate to us? And I've worked in the care setting. My particular interest and speciality is in dementia care, because I guess of my link as a psychologist. And my grandmother sadly passed away having suffered terribly with dementia. And one of the key things, I'm so passionate about what you do, when I had the invitation to speak today, is this man, is he actually a photographer or not? Are you just you never be too sure, often, or just a pervert? I don't know. Both, he says, both. Joy. Don't do that, there'll be a queue at break. Madam, sit down. Now, and one of the fascinating things that I've been championing for a long time is, the tragedy of removing people from their home setting, and how debilitating that can be on well-being and mental health. And so when I got the call to talk to you today, I couldn't believe it was like a dream come true. It was a joy. So for me, you're all like super special. I just want to hug you all and say you're doing brilliant things and lick your face. Not you, sir. You'll be fine. So, let's get to the sexy stuff, right? Tiny bit of science, then we'll get to the sexy stuff, all right? So, people often say, is it quite difficult? Is it quite challenging? You're already knocking stuff out the park, multi-award winning, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that later, because they're my favorite types of people to work with. The organizations that are already doing really well. The individuals, the teams that are award winning, they're doing well already at what they do. They've established themselves in their industry. Because those are the people that define the very cornerstone of us as human beings. And that is our ability to continue to improve, to continue always to keep doing better, right? Nothing is ever finished, but I'll come back to that later. How excited you are. So, fundamentally, human behavior is simple as ABC, right? The B in this algorithm stands for behavior. Those are the things that we see and do. That's the colleague that turns up for work late, the other colleague that, writes in the care manual that they did something and clearly they didn't. Doesn't happen in this organization, but other ones, of course. The child that draws on the wall, the little dog that leaves a present in your shoe, those are all behaviors, right? Every behavior has a consequence. Broadly speaking, you punish the things you want to see less of, you reinforce the things you want to see more of, right, broadly. But the A is the really magic bit, right? That's where the magical stuff happens. A stands for antecedent. An antecedent's a very posh word that makes people like me feel a little bit more important than perhaps we really are. And it means the thing that comes before. So that is to say that no behavior just happens. Every behavior happens for a reason. It's caused. So over 4 years, we do some research, hundreds of thousands of individuals, thousands of organizations, and hundreds of managers. Because I want to see whether management or leadership affects whether we can do things better or not, right? Whether it influences that. Almost all of those organizations that achieved ordinary things were the ones who waited for behaviors to happen, right? They were reactive. But almost all of the people who were achieving something remarkable or extraordinary, that were adaptive, that created seismic changes in their industry, were those people who understood that they could influence the right behaviors to happen in order to achieve the right consequences. Does that make sense? Yes, Jez, I'll fill in the gaps. So, where that leaves us today is something really important, right? Because fundamentally, what we're really good at as human beings is concentrating on the bad stuff, right? We're really good at focusing on when stuff doesn't especially go very well. And is this all right if I have this? I'm going to have it anyway. Could I? No one's going to rugby tackle me for a glass of water, I would imagine. Just checking. What was I talking about then? Rugby tackles, that's right. So I'm not here for fun, sir, if you could... Yes, that's right. So, you see, the thing is, we're very good at focusing on the bad stuff, on the negative stuff that happens. And generally speaking, if you've got kids, you'll be absolute gold star experts at focusing on the negative stuff, right? Because you just can't help it. So here's what happens. Generally, when good things happen to us, we get a little surge of adrenaline in our body, right? So say you step off of a roller coaster, your heart rate's elevated, your face is flushed, your blood pressure's elevated, you feel that adrenaline going. And that's the same for all good things that happen to us. You get a big surge of adrenaline, okay? It's the same for all good things that happen to us. We're there. All right, so the fascinating thing about adrenaline is it goes away very quickly. It gets metabolized, gets used up. That's why some people fall asleep very quickly after certain good things that happen to them. Now when bad things happen to you, when you get a shock or a trauma or a jolt, right, your brain releases the stress hormone cortisol. It sort of leaks, obviously not physically. Sorry about that, stress. It leaks inside your body, inside your brain, right? And a fascinating thing about cortisol, if you're a psychologist and don't have many friends, is that conversely, where adrenaline goes up and goes away very quickly, the same thing happens with with cortisol. Bad things happen, massive surge of cortisol, but cortisol takes hours, days, weeks, months, sometimes even years to reduce back down to a normal level, depending on the stressor that we're exposed to. So what does that tell us? Correct. It tells us that the bad stuff lingers longer, right? It has a greater physiological effect on our body.